Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. I'm Mona Duncan, and with my co-host, Jan Moray, and we have a couple of regulars joining us, which is always nice, and thank you for watching now or tuning in later. Our topic today is never give up, and Jan was looking at the 8 steps that Dr. Glasser has in teaching those choice theory and reality therapy, how to deal with clients and so forth. And number 8 is never give up, never give up. So Jan, what do you want to go with today?
Well, what brought that back to my mind was outside my window, I have a hummingbird feeder and a regular bird feeder. And it's one of those bird feeders that when something too heavy gets on it, it closes, and so they can't get the seed out of there. But squirrels are relentless. And even though it closes down, they still manage to get their tongue in there to get the stuff out. And so, the first when we hung it up there, my husband hung it up with twine. Well, the hummingbird feeder is held up with twine, but the squirrel knew to chew through the twine that the bird feeder was hanging on, so that after he chewed through it, it dropped down and spilled the seed, so he had all he could eat. And so then we changed it. Instead of twine, it has wire on it now. And then he tried sliding down. It was a little too long for it to get down there, so then it learned how to jump up. And it's like they're relentless. They never give up. They have their goal in mind. They know there's food there. They're hungry. They want the food. And they keep trying every way they can in order to get what it is they want. And you think about everyday life for us, how often do we just give up? We just decide it's too much work or too much trouble. But then you have to think, well, how strongly do you want to get that goal that you're going after? And so I was just, so it brought me back to Glasser, as so many things do. And then I remembered those 8 steps. And I know he quit doing those 8 steps about the time. I mean, he quit doing them for some reason. I wasn't around then, so I don't know how everything transpired then. But I still remember those, because that's one of the things that I learned when I was taking it in my theories class, at my counseling. And I that always stuck in my mind, the never give up. And it's like, how many times do we give up before we ever get there, before we ever achieve our goals, because we just realize it's just too much trouble? And what keeps us from continuing on? And why can't we be more like that squirrel and keep trying and trying until we get what we want and what we need?
So those 8 steps were not necessarily steps that you have to take in order. It was just kind of things to keep up with. But definitely the 8th one was never give up. Don't ever give up. Even if your client gives up, even if your child gives up, don't you give up on them.
Yeah.
Because we have to have someone to believe in us, someone to care for us, someone that can see something in us that we cannot see in ourselves. Yeah. I know that's one of the things that I like to say to my clients a lot of time is, I don't know, I can see something in you that I think you're not seeing in yourself.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times you'll want to encourage someone to think they are different than what they're saying that they are. Like, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I'm not pretty, I'm this, I'm that. And instead of trying to convince them, I always like to look at it, well, I think you're pretty.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're doing a good job. And it kind of resonates there. Well, this lady may be just as crazy as can be, but if she thinks it, who am I to argue with her?
Right. Right. She's giving me a compliment and I'm arguing with her. No, I'm not.
Right. And maybe sometimes we're giving up on ourselves if we can't accept a compliment.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Oh, that looks so nice on you, or you did such a good job with it. Oh, that old thing. Oh, I didn't do good enough. Unless we can just say thank you, whether we agree with it or not, it was good enough.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing for some people to do, is just to compliment and just to accept it instead of trying to talk it down or say why they don't deserve that compliment. It's like, nope, 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 just stop and take it in. Somebody's giving a gift. Accept it graciously.
Right. And the thing of it is, those squirrels just keep on keeping on. Part of their motivation is definitely hunger.
Right.
And maybe it's when we don't let ourselves get hungry enough that we give up. Or we satisfy it with other things that are not nourishing. That is not the ultimate goal of what our soul was yearning for.
Yeah, we settle.
And so don't give up on yourself, but also don't give up on others.
Right.
And to help them not give up on themselves. So how are some ways that we can help them not give up on themselves?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that comes to mind for me is to not lose hope. Because as long as there's hope, then you can figure out a way to get there. But once you lose hope and think that there's no way it's going to happen, and there's no way to get out of this mess, or then there's nothing driving you, nothing to get you there. And I can remember all the the classes I took about suicide is the thing that you need to make sure when you're working with people who are suicidal is that they don't give up hope, because once they give up hope, that you've lost them. And so you try to find what is it in their life that makes it worth living, and help them to understand that, well, there are things you can do to get there. And then I found a quote here. You'll be proud here, Mona.
I am.
By Christopher Reeve, that says, "Once you choose hope, anything's possible." And I think that is so true, because once you believe in it and you think that you can get there, you can. It's probably not an easy trail to get there, but you can still get there.
You can, and once you choose it, and that it is a choice.
Right.
But then it's from Christopher Reeves. So his history.
Right.
He had a broken neck that left him completely
paraplegic.
Paralyzed, paraplegic. And in the, it's one thing for you to say, choose hope and never give up.
Right.
Once you choose it, you never give up. But for someone that has experienced such a misstep in life, such a thing to have happened, and to have that resiliency within inside that says, yes, choose hope. And once you do choose it and bite down into it and hang on to it, you're not going to give it up. Because to give it up is just too devastating.
Right.
And tomorrow's another day, choosing hope and never giving up, and realizing that it's amazing what tomorrow looks like after you've had even a not so good night's sleep.
Yeah. Well, I think with choosing hope too and working towards something, it does give you something to do and keeps you busy, and you keep thinking about, how am I going to get there and how am I going to move forward? Whereas when you give up, it's like there's nothing you can do, and then you do nothing, and you're in that victim mode, and you're just not doing anything to help yourself. And so then how does that work?
Yeah. And rest if you must, but don't you quit.
Right.
Don't give up. Just don't give up. And I'm not ever going to give up on you. And to help them, especially if it's something, regardless, but especially if it's like suicide thoughts, to write a contract. That you make a contract and you sign off on it and they sign off on it. That I promise I will not harm myself without letting you know.
Yeah, right.
And then, and I had this family member one time came out to the house, and although it happened occasionally, it was not frequent. They just dropped by for no reason, And they came out to the house and they dropped by and just how y'all was doing and everything. And we talked, and anyway, I walked them out to their car, and it just dropped into my heart to say to them, so you've made up your mind?
Oh,
And it kind of looked at me, so what are you talking about? And I said, are you thinking of harming yourself?
wow.
And I mean, she had really put on a good front and had come in and was, and I walked out with it. I said, this is something is telling me that there's a decision here that we wanted to, and anyway, so we went into negotiation, came back in, put on a pot of coffee,
Okay.
and talked
Okay.
and talked and
Coffee.
talked.
Yeah.
Went to
Well, just
breakfast the
showing
next morning.
just showing concern is huge. That somebody cares
Yeah,
and was able to understand what this person was going through. I mean, that had to be huge for them.
right, right. If nothing else, I mean, get a dog, get a cat. I think dogs will be more intrusive than a cat will, but even a cat, they sense things,
They
and
do.
they'll come to you
They
and
do.
nuzzle up.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. My kitty. Well, we've had several that had, not with us anymore. But one in particular that was on its last legs, and the cat had not made any motion. I carried it around and did everything for it, and even tried to feed it, but I
Yeah.
carried it around. And so this one night I was sitting there and I was looking at it and I was holding it in my arms, and I looked down at the kitty and I said, do you know how much I love you?
Aw.
And that kitty just looked up at me and had this weak little meow, as
Yeah.
though it was saying to me, do you know how much I love you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And those dogs, I know one of the prisoners one time, I was talking with him, and he said how this dog nuzzled him out of self-harm
Oh.
by just, and he
Showing
would push him away and the dog kept coming back, and he climbed up on the couch and he kept ooching over, even though he was, and mad at him, and all of a sudden it dawned on him that, hey, this dog cares about me.
right. That's right. Somebody cares.
And of course, I'm of the belief personally that there is a divine, that there is a God that cares, that there is a wonderful resource.
Yeah. Yeah. There's there are always people who care if we just look around or if we just ask. I mean, there's nothing wrong when you're having a rough time to go up to a family member and say, hey, I really need some help. I'm struggling. And why it's so hard for us to say that, it's so sad because people will come over and help you and do things for you if you'll just mention it that you need something.
Right, right. Just to talk. I was thumbing through the other day on the YouTube channel, and it was the glasses. No, it said, there's no explanation for why it happened, but you won't believe this. But anyway, so it has this curiosity, and so I clicked on it. It was only 8 minutes or 6 minutes, not very long. So I clicked on it, and it was this guy, and he was going through his routine of the day, and I mean, he was the last in line for everything. And when he finally got his order that he had ordered at the drink stand, it was the wrong thing, and something happened to some other line he was in, and that he had to wait and fill out a form, and he got out in the car and somebody came in as he was going out, and they were rude to him. Of course, he was kind of rude to them too, but he goes on out, and someone comes up to him and hands him a pair of glasses, and it says, try this. And he takes it, and he's really angry with it. He throws it over in his car, and he gets in his car, and then traffic is coming everywhere, and they won't let him go. He's trying to go, and somebody's getting in front of him and all this. And all of a sudden, and he looks over there, and he sees these glasses, and just in frustration, he picks up and he puts them on. And it looks up there, and it says, sickness in the family.
Oh.
And he starts walking down the street, and he says, do you care? Anyway, he looks at somebody else, and he sees on them as though this little cloud above their head that they're saying, why even try? And and I don't remember all the little verbiages but he looked around, and he's kind of surprised himself, And anyway, and he goes on home, and he pulls into his driveway, and this little kid, the neighborhood kid, but the Dennis the Menace kid,
No.
is there, and he has to slow down for him before he can drive into his drive, and he looks at it, and he still has those glasses on, and he says, nobody really cares.
Oh.
So he's that the little kid is there. And so he gets out of his car and goes out and he says, hey, buddy. And he goes over to him and he shakes his hand.
Yeah.
And he just starts talking to him. And I mean, I was just so touched by that. If we could just put on our glasses to see me, to see you, to see someone else.
To understand what they're going through.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Garland for several years.
Just to understand that we don't know what other people are going through. And we make up the story that that we want to believe because they're being rude to us. So we want to believe they're having a rough day or they're a bad person or whatever. But sometimes they're suffering just as much or even more than we are. And just to take the time to really understand what others are going through. Connect on a better, higher level than what we do.
Right, right. For a few years, my husband was the store manager and the district manager for Dollar General, and they had a slogan: "Greet within 5 feet." So anybody that walked in their store, that no matter where they were stocking or whatever, they was to greet the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of took that as my motto for life: to greet within 5 feet.
Yeah.
To just acknowledge the fact that someone is there, and to look them in the eyes, and to smile at them, and to
Right.
say something silly of whatever. How about those bears? How about something? To have some kind of contact. We just need to contact people.
Yeah.
To
I
be
do
in
that on
touch.
my walks every morning. I make it a point when, because I see a lot of people out when I walk in the mornings, and I say hello to everybody, no matter who it is. If it's a construction worker or a kid walking to the school bus or whomever, I always say hello. And it's so funny. The other day there's some new people moving into a house down the street from us, but they're moving from the neighborhood. And so then one of the other neighbors were there, and I was saying, "Oh, you look familiar." She said, "Yeah, I've seen you walking." I said, "Oh, okay." And then the woman who's moving into the house said, "Oh yeah, I see you walking all the time." And I'm like, really? Because I don't wear my glasses, so I can't see them very well when they're from afar. But I do make the effort to connect with people and try to say hello to them, and it helps me to feel good, and I'm sure it helps the people who are receiving it.
Sure it does. Sure it does. I know I don't walk the neighborhood, but I have people that do walk the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always make it a point to speak to them.
Yeah.
And to get to know. But even when I'm out, I just want to acknowledge the fact that you're here.
Yeah.
That I've seen you there. Sometimes just say hey, or hi or whatever. But just we just go by so many people without ever acknowledging their presence on planet Earth.
And you never know whose day you might help make a little brighter just by giving them a smile.
Right. So just to care and to never give up, and to never give up on yourself, even whenever you kind of want to beat yourself up. Well, don't.
Right.
Don't give up on you either. Because deep down inside there's some good thoughts, there's some good things that you have done and will do again. And so just
to remember those, to take the time to remember that, and to be appreciative for those things that you have, and then to be appreciative for your future. Even if it seems pretty grim, think about a nice ending that you would like to have, and appreciate that. Appreciate being able to get there, and how I will get there, and just to keep thinking positively and moving forward. Because once you start down that negative spiral, it gets too hard to dig out of it.
Definitely does. So just never give up. Never give up. Always, if nothing else, smile. Just the fact of deliberately smiling on purpose,
Right.
smiling, it buoys you. And then also just looking up, I mean, literally looking up, whether it's to a tree or to, how tall the ceiling is, just looking up. It's something about our physiology that it literally lifts us. And then stand up,
Right.
get up, wake up, suit up, show up, speak up.
Right. Anything up. Just do it.
And then, sometimes after we do all that, we have to learn to shut up.
Right.
But yeah, just
there's one exercise that I read several years ago that really works. It seems so stupid, but when you're feeling down, just go find a mirror and look at yourself in the mirror and just smile at yourself. And once you start smiling at yourself, you really do start to feel better. Sometimes you just can't stop laughing because you're so silly. You feel so silly looking at yourself and smiling. But if you have that much of an effect on yourself by smiling, and what can you do for the rest of the world by perking up their day by smiling? It's such a powerful weapon to be able to do that. Try to get away from, because there's negativity all around. You don't have to look very far to find it, but you just stay away from it. So I'm not going to get drug into that. I'm going to keep moving forward and smile and be appreciative of what I have accomplished and just keep trudging on.
Right. And we do have this negative bias, but it's for a purpose. It's to keep us alert.
Yeah.
So that we won't be too gullible. So that, if something is wrong, we'll notice it and to speak up.
Right.
But to just keep on keeping on, to know that you matter, and that others matter, that everyone matters. We are matter. Not only the poundage matter, but
right.
we matter by our personality, by our gifts, by our talents, by the fact that we are the highest order on planet Earth, if nothing else. Although I think there's a lot of other things to include within that.
Yeah.
That we're the top of the heap. And in Maslow's, the
triangle.
The triangle, that's your self-actualization. Well, I don't know. I think we can be self-actualized no matter where we are on that, because we are the highest order on planet Earth. And that all of the kin folks it took to get together to make the mix that became you and I.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of work put into that. There was a lot of chemistry. There was a lot of traditions. There was a lot of saints and sinners and all kinds of stuff stuck together. So, and even then, whenever the final joining of the sperm and the egg, it took a lot of energy for that one special one to be singled out to be you. And if that doesn't make you unique and special, I don't know what does.
Right.
That there's no one else on the earth like you, and just appreciate that. And anything that appreciates goes up in value.
Right.
So as you appreciate you begin to realize, okay.
Yeah. And it's never too late to start. Even if you feel like your life isn't going the way you wanted it to go, and you're not real happy with that, well, okay. As Mona says all the time, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And so we can't do anything to change that right now, but we can change it from now forward. So what are we going to do about it? I think that's part of those 8 steps too. I think they later morphed into Bob Wobbelding's WDEP. What do you want? What are you doing about it? And how's it working? Putting your plan together is that you're working the plan. You're self-evaluating. You're trying to determine, is this really where I want to be? If it is, great, keep moving forward. If it's not too late. It's never too late to readjust and change your course a little bit and try something different. and just keep moving forward. But to always have in mind what you want. Like that squirrel wants that bird seed. It knows where it wants to go. Well, what is it in your life that you want to accomplish in your life, and how are you going to get there? What else can you do?
Yeah. And so if in looking for that, if you would equate it with the fact that what is that hunger? But don't look at food hunger. Look at, what is it? Have you ever wanted something and you didn't know what you wanted, and so you settled for a cracker or ice cream or something like that? Because when we have a hunger, we have to, because so many times we can't map out what all of these emotions and things are, we need something tangible. And so if we had a hunger, we're going to go for the most convenient.
Yeah.
But if we can isolate and know what that hunger is, then maybe it's just to be smiled at. So if nothing else, look in the mirror and smile at you.
At yourself. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And just realize that tomorrow is another day, and sing the Annie song, tomorrow. whether that's 10 minutes from now or actually tomorrow, just begin to.
Well, and also to understand that you have a lot of power in being able to change who you are, instead of looking outside for something else to happen. I will be happy when this happens, or if this happens. Well, you can't depend on anybody else, but you can depend on you. So what is it that you can do to make that tomorrow a little bit brighter, instead of waiting around and complaining for somebody else who's not doing what you want them to do to make your life brighter, because that's just that's not the way you're going to be successful a large percentage of the time. Whereas if you rely on yourself and do things for yourself to help make things better, not only will you feel better, but you feel good about yourself for having accomplished it. I bet that squirrel feels pretty good when he's able to get a bucket feeder and get some food.
Show Jan.
That's right. And he sees me looking through the window, and he just sits there with his tail wagging. You can't get me.
Yeah, fluffing it out, saying, I showed you. So that's a good note to call at the end on, that the squirrel doesn't give up, and even though he kind of mocks at you, you're not going to give up on the squirrel either. You're going to get your BB gun out and harm him.
No, we're not going to hurt him. We're just going to try to make it a little bit more difficult. So now we're going to the next plan. What do we do now? So I don't give up either.
So thanks for tuning in today, and see you next week, either or later, whenever you view this at another time. So have a good week.
All right. Bye-bye. Whoops.